Welcome to this 365 Freedom Strategy session. Today we're breaking down the mechanics of time choice and why your business growth is tied to your ability to simplify your schedule.
Yeah, it sounds totally counterintuitive right out of the gate, doesn't it? Usually when we consult on growth, the immediate assumption is that we need to talk about addition.
Right. Adding things.
Exactly. Adding marketing channels, adding new products, adding, hours to the workday. But today we are taking the exact opposite approach. We are talking about subtraction as the primary driver of momentum.
It really is probably the hardest thing for a founder to accept because we are so conditioned to believe that more is better. More grind, more hustle, more tasks checked off the list. But looking at the client data we manage here, there is a very specific pathology that we see constantly in the 365 Freedom ecosystem.
Yeah, the entrepreneur who is doing everything quote-unquote right on paper.
Exactly. They are showing up. They are putting in the hours. They are sweating all the small details. But the needle just isn't moving. So we need to start with section 1, the diagnosis. We call this fractured energy.
Fractured energy, it's the perfect term for it, really, because it describes the structural failure of your attention. Let's look at the specific client profile from our case file.
Yeah, let's break that down.
Because this profile is likely going to sound very familiar to a lot of people listening to this briefing right now. We had a client, an incredibly ambitious creator and entrepreneur.
Right, and we should clarify, this wasn't someone who was lazy.
Not at all. This wasn't someone who lacked drive. If you asked her, she was working, quote, all the time.
And that phrase is the ultimate red flag, isn't it? I'm working on it all the time. When we hear that in a consultation, the alarm bells just start ringing immediately.
They absolutely do, because when you dig into the actual operational reality of all the time, you almost always find complete chaos. The symptoms she presented with was a complete lack of perceptible progress. She felt like she was sprinting on a treadmill. High effort, high heart rate, lots of sweat, but geographically, the business was in the exact same spot it was 6 months prior.
She hadn't launched the core offer. She hadn't built the funnel. She was just
working, just doing things.
So let's unpack this concept of fractured energy a bit more. The analysis suggests that when a schedule is packed with too many tasks, the energy itself fractures. What does that actually look like in a practical day-to-day scenario?
Well, think of your attention like a laser beam. If you focus that beam on one single spot, say writing a sales email or finalizing a product module, it generates heat. It burns through the resistance. You get the job done.
Right, penetrates.
Exactly. But what happens when you try to focus that laser on 12 different points simultaneously?
You don't get a beam anymore.
No, you get a diffused light. It illuminates everything slightly, but it doesn't have the power to burn through anything. That is fractured energy. You are touching everything, but you are moving absolutely nothing.
And the downstream effects of that are just brutal. We see that progress slows down to a halt and motivation fades. It's a physiological response almost.
It is.
If you're pushing against a brick wall all day and it doesn't move, eventually your brain just stops sending the signal to push. You give up.
Precisely. And this is where our consulting analysis becomes really critical. We have to address the misconception that ambition is enough.
Yes.
We see so many aspiring entrepreneurs who genuinely believe that if they just want it bad enough, the laws of physics regarding time and energy somehow won't apply to them.
Like they can just outwill a bad schedule.
Right. But the finding here is clear. For many founders, the problem isn't a lack of drive. It is a lack of focus that leads to energy dispersion. You are spreading a limited resource, your cognitive energy, over way too much surface area.
Let's get into the specific metrics on this, because this is where the emotional side really meets the hard data. We call this the broken expectation metric.
This is a vital metric.
We did an audit of this client's actual routine. We compared her daily output against her perception of what she should be doing. What did we see?
The audit was incredibly revealing. This client was operating with a daily to-do list of approximately 12 tasks. Now, these weren't small things like check the mail or pay a bill.
No, these were heavy lists.
Significant business tasks. Write the sales page, fix the website header, research 3 competitors. 12 of those. Every single day.
And what was the reality of her completion rate?
2. She was consistently completing about 2 tasks per day.
Okay, let's just pause on that for a second. Planned for 12, completed 2. That leaves a delta of 10 uncompleted tasks every single day.
Yes. And that is the clinical finding of this session. Her schedule wasn't broken. Her expectations were.
See, that's a huge distinction.
She was physically capable of doing 2, maybe 3 significant things, That's a normal human output. But because she expected to do 12, she ended every single day feeling like a failure.
That gap is everything. That analysis of the gap is crucial to understanding why founders burn out. If you wake up and you execute 2 major business building tasks, that should be a massive win. That is real progress.
It's excellent progress.
But if your list says 12, those 2 tasks don't feel like a win at all. They feel like you're drowning.
It creates a severe psychological toll. You are starting every subsequent day with a debt of 10 tasks from the day before, and this accumulates rapidly. We refer to this in the files as the heavy feeling.
The client described it perfectly in her notes, didn't she?
She did. She said, everything feels heavy and nothing gets done. That heaviness isn't just physical fatigue. It is the emotional weight of hundreds of uncompleted tasks that you've subconsciously carried over from previous weeks.
It paralyzes you. It's not just that nothing gets done because you're tired. Nothing gets done because the mountain just looks too high to climb.
Correct. When the brain perceives a task list that is impossible, it triggers an avoidance response.
Right, the flight response.
Yes. You end up scrolling social media or, reorganizing your desk drawers, these low-value activities, because the actual work feels physically too heavy to lift.
Which transitions us perfectly into section 2, the mechanics of overwhelm. We really need to talk about why volume kills momentum, specifically in the context of the 9-to-5 employee.
This context is vital. We aren't just talking about full-time CEOs who have 40 hours a week to dedicate to their brand. We're talking about the side hustle trap.
The people building in the margin.
Exactly. This is the specific constraint of building a business while working a full-time job. You have a highly finite amount of hours, maybe early mornings, a lunch break, and a couple of hours in the evenings.
And in that specific context, who is the enemy?
The enemy is overwhelm, plain and simple. When you have limited hours, your margin for error is effectively 0.
Right.
If a full-time founder wastes 4 hours scrolling, they might make it up in the evening. If a 9-to-5 side hustler wastes their 1 available hour, the day is a total wash. The business doesn't grow that day.
And the error most people make in this position is attempting to cram a full-time founder's schedule into a part-time window.
They are adding far more tasks than is physically possible to complete in those off hours.
It leads to what our strategy notes call predictable results. You overload the calendar, you make it mathematically impossible to move the business forward. It's not just that it's harder, it becomes operationally impossible.
You are jamming a gallon of water into a shot glass. It's just going to spill everywhere and create a mess.
Let's talk about the unlimited hours fallacy. There is a core axiom we operate by here. Your business grows when your schedule stops pretending you have unlimited hours.
It is a harsh truth. Why do founders pretend they have unlimited hours? It's often a mix of wild optimism and sheer desperation.
Mostly desperation, I'd say.
Usually, yes. They think, I need to get this done, therefore I will get this done. But the clock does not care about your need.
It's living in a fantasy schedule.
And the operational danger of a fantasy schedule is that you cannot predict outcomes. If you don't know what you can realistically achieve in a given day, you can't project revenue, you can't plan product launches, and you can't manage your own expectations.
You are just flying blind.
Completely blind.
There is a specific point here about the cost of complexity. We saw a task list in the audit that would literally take a small agency team to complete. And it was paralyzing a solo founder.
That is the crux of the issue. When you look at a daily list that requires a copywriter, a graphic designer, a tech support agent, and a high-level strategist, and you are just one person trying to do all of it before dinner, your brain shuts down.
It has to. It's self-preservation.
Complexity is the enemy of execution. If the list is complex, the action is 0. We need to strip that complexity away to find the traction.
Which brings us right to the solution. Section 3. The protocol. We call this the essential 3. This is the remedial protocol we applied to the client in our case study.
This is the shift to simplicity. Notice what we didn't do. We didn't tell her to work harder. We didn't tell her to set her alarm for 4 in the morning.
No more hustle culture advice.
None of that. We told her to narrow the list down to exactly 3 business building priorities per day.
Only 3.
Exactly 3. The constraint we put on her was rigid, finish those, and nothing more.
I want to focus on that nothing more part. That requires a tremendous amount of discipline. It is almost harder to stop working than it is to keep going.
It is, because we are so deeply conditioned to believe that more is always better. Stopping after 3 tasks feels like you are leaving money on the table. It feels lazy.
Right, the guilt creeps in.
But this ties directly back to the ThriveTime concept from week 2 of our program. Trusting your time choices. You have to trust that doing 3 things completely is infinitely more valuable than starting 10 things and finishing none of them.
Let's operationalize this for the listener. How do we define the essential 3? What actually makes the cut?
The selection criteria are strict. These must be business-building priorities or the priorities that matter most.
So clearing out the inbox.
Checking your email is likely not one of the 3. Replying to Slack messages is not one of the 3. These are the needle movers. Writing the sales copy. Recording the video content. Building the actual checkout funnel.
And what's the execution instruction for these?
These are 3 tasks you will finish no matter what. If the house is on fire, you grab the cat and you finish your 3 tasks.
Well, hopefully not literally, but point taken.
But that is the mentality you need to adopt. And this leads directly to the wait discipline. The explicit instruction we gave the client was, let everything else wait.
That is terrifying for most people. Let everything else wait. What if I miss a networking opportunity? What if a client gets angry that I didn't reply in 5 minutes?
That fear is exactly what keeps you stuck. You have to be willing to let the non-essential fires burn so that you can build the fireproof house. That is the necessary trade-off. It's uncomfortable, but it is absolutely necessary for clarity.
And the strategic maxim here is one we use all the time. Momentum comes from clarity, not volume.
Everyone listening needs to memorize that. Momentum comes from clarity, not volume. You can have incredibly high volume and 0 momentum that is just spinning your wheels in the mud. But clarity, knowing exactly what needs to be done, actually doing it, creates forward motion.
So we applied this protocol. The client went from 12 tasks down to 3. Let's look at section 4, the turnaround. What actually happened?
The results were immediate. We were talking about a major operational shift within a week.
That is fast. Usually, high-level strategy shifts take months to show an ROI.
This is a psychological ROI. The timeline was short because the relief was instant. Let's look at the emotional shift she documented. She went from feeling overwhelmed to feeling capable.
From chaos to focus.
And most importantly, from guilt to progress.
Talk to me about that aha moment she had. The file mentions that instead of feeling behind on 10 things, she finally felt successful for completing 3.
That is the game changer. It is a literal chemical shift in the brain. Dopamine comes from completion. When she checked off that 3rd box, her brain registered a win. She ended her workday feeling like a winner.
Which is a stark contrast to before.
Completely. When she was aiming for 12 and hitting 2, she ended the day feeling like a loser.
And you cannot build a sustainable business if you feel like a loser every single day.
You can't. This is our core consultant analysis on this issue. The feeling of capability is a prerequisite for scaling. You cannot grow a business from a place of guilt.
It's an energetic mismatch.
Yes. If you feel guilty every time you look at your business, you will subconsciously avoid it. You'll find reasons not to work. But if you feel capable, if you sit down and feel like, hey, I said I would do this and I actually did it, you want to come back tomorrow and do it again.
So we are redefining business momentum here.
Yes, the cause and effect sequence is very clear. Reduce the list. This creates clarity. And clarity creates momentum.
The logic totally holds up. Simple workloads create the necessary room for growth.
Think about a garden. If you plant seeds every single inch, nothing grows because the roots choke each other out beneath the soil. If you space them out, if you simplify the layout, the plants have room to expand.
That makes perfect sense.
Overloaded calendars result in stalled progress. Focused calendars result in consistent momentum.
Let's bring this home with section 5, strategic application. Because we want the listener to win today.
This is the daily directive. The call to action is simple. Give yourself the chance to win today.
How do they actually do that?
The structure is 3 simple steps. 1, choose 3 priorities, real ones. 2, complete them. 3, let them be enough.
I am challenging the listener right now. Look at your task list for today. Right now. Is it realistic? Do you have 15 things on there?
If you do, you are actively setting yourself up to lose. You are betting against yourself before the day even starts.
We really need to discuss the power of enough. Why is it so incredibly hard for founders to accept that 3 tasks are sufficient for a day's work?
Because we live in a culture that valorizes exhaustion. We think if we aren't completely burned out by 6 p.m., we aren't really working. But we are in the business of results, not fatigue.
Say that again. We are in the business of results, not fatigue.
Exactly. Accepting that 3 tasks are enough is an act of leadership. It is you saying, I am in control of my resources, and this is the optimal allocation of my energy.
It's a declaration of intent.
It is. The foundation of a winning founder is realistic expectations. If you don't have that, you are building an empire on sand.
And the final assessment from our briefing is quite stark. If the business feels stuck, the lift is too long.
That is the ultimate diagnostic rule of thumb. If you are stuck, do not add, subtract. The fix is always subtraction, not addition.
Because the ultimate goal here is consistency.
Correct. We don't want these sporadic bursts of fractured energy where you work 18 hours one day and then burn out and avoid your desk for a week. We want a consistent business building routine.
3 tasks every day.
Every day. That compounds. That is how you actually build an empire.
It sounds so simple, but it really changes everything.
It's simple, but it's not easy. It requires the courage to say no to the noise so you can say yes to the signal.
I want to go back and really drill down on the fractured energy concept for a moment, because I think this is where so many people get stuck without even realizing it. We talked about the laser beam analogy, but let's talk about the emotional residue of fractured energy.
That is a great point to bring up. When your energy is fractured, you aren't just inefficient, you become irritable. You become reactive instead of proactive.
You're always on the defense.
Exactly. The briefing mentions that motivation fades, but it goes deeper than that. Your identity as an entrepreneur starts to erode. You start telling yourself, maybe I'm just not cut out for this, or maybe I'm just not disciplined enough.
And that's the real tragedy. It's not a character flaw at all, it's a structural flaw.
Precisely. That's why we call it a mechanics issue in the intro. If you put sand in the gas tank of a Ferrari, it won't run. It doesn't mean the Ferrari is a bad car. It means the mechanics of the fuel intake are compromised.
Fractured energy is the sand in the tank.
You are taking high-quality ambition and polluting it with operational clutter.
The case study mentioned the client felt she was working on it all the time.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the busy work trap. Because often when we have a list of 12 things, we naturally gravitate toward the easiest ones first, right?
Absolutely. It is human nature. We seek the path of least resistance. If your list has design logo, research competitors, update Instagram bio, and rate core sales letter, guess which ones get done?
The bio gets updated immediately.
Right. You'll update the bio, you'll browse competitor sites for 3 hours and call it market research, you'll tweak the logo colors, and at the end of the day, you've checked off 3 boxes. But the core sales letter, the thing that actually brings in money, is untouched.
So you feel busy, but the business hasn't moved an inch.
You've exhausted your cognitive energy on low-leverage activities. That's why the Essential 3 protocol specifies business-building priorities. It forces you to confront the hard work first. You can't hide behind the busy work when the list is only 3 items long.
It entirely removes the hiding spots.
Exactly. It shines a harsh spotlight on execution.
Let's pivot back to the broken expectation metric. We talked about the gap between 12 planned and 2 completed. I want to discuss the heaviness mentioned in the client notes again. Everything feels heavy and nothing gets done.
Think about carrying a backpack. Every uncompleted task is a rock you put in that pack. Day 1, you miss 10 tasks. That's 10 rocks. You carry them to day 2.
Now you have day 2's tasks plus the 10 rocks.
Right. By the end of the week, you are carrying a literal boulder. That heaviness is your cognitive load. Your brain is constantly running a background process trying to track all the things you haven't done.
And that consumes your RAM.
It eats up all your RAM.
Yeah.
So when you sit down to do deep, focused work, your processor is already at 90% usage, just managing the anxiety of the backlog.
So clearing the list, or rather not creating the impossible list in the first place, is like freeing up the RAM in your brain.
It is closing the open tabs. When you say, I am only doing these 3 things, you are giving your brain permission to stop tracking the other 50 things. You are putting down the rocks. The heaviness lifts because you finally align your expectation with reality.
I love that phrasing, aligning expectation with reality. That brings us back to the side hustle trap, the 9-to-5 context. We mentioned that overwhelms the adversary. But I want to talk about the specific pressure of the limited time frame.
The 9-to-5 entrepreneur is playing a very different game than the full-time founder. They have what we call hard stops. You have to leave for work at a certain time. You have to go to bed to wake up for work. There is no fluidity.
So when they try to use a fluid schedule like, I'll just get to it tonight, it fails.
It fails because tonight is a finite resource. Maybe you have 2 hours. If you sit down with a list of 10 things, you spend the first 30 minutes just deciding what to do.
Which is 25% of your available time gone.
Gone to decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue, that is a huge factor here.
Huge. The Essential 3 eliminates decision fatigue entirely. You decide your 3 tasks before you sit down. ideally the night before. So when you clock out of your 9 to 5 and switch to founder mode, you don't ask, what should I do? You just execute task 1.
That transition needs to be absolutely seamless.
It has to be. The unlimited hours fallacy is particularly dangerous for the 9 to 5er because they are often trying to escape the job. They have this deep desperation to build the business so they can quit, and that desperation leads them to overplan.
The thought process is, if I do more, I can quit sooner.
But the paradox is, by trying to do more, they actually do less, and they stay in the job longer.
That is a cruel irony. The cost of complexity we discussed, a task list that paralyzes a solo founder, actually delays their exit from the 9 to 5.
If you want to quit your job, you need consistent momentum. You don't need a month of 18-hour days followed by 3 months of total burnout. You need a year of focused daily execution.
Momentum comes from clarity, not volume. That line from the strategy session really lands here.
It's the mantra. Volume is vanity, clarity is sanity, and revenue.
Let's dig even deeper into the Essential 3 protocol. We talked about the selection criteria, priorities that matter most.
Can we give some examples of what doesn't matter?
Sure. Tweaking your website font size doesn't matter. Responding to a non-urgent DM doesn't matter. Reorganizing your Google Drive folders definitely doesn't matter.
Right.
Unless those things are directly tied to a launch happening tomorrow, they are procrastination disguised as productivity.
Procrastination disguised as productivity. That is a killer.
We all do it. It feels good to clean the digital house, but if you haven't sent the email to your list, you aren't building the business. The Essential 3 forces you to prioritize revenue-generating activities.
And the wait discipline. Let everything else wait. This implies a massive level of trust in the process.
It requires you to trust that the business won't crumble if you don't answer an email instantly. And here's the secret. It won't. Most emergencies in a solopreneur business are completely self-fabricated.
We invent urgency. We invent urgency to distract ourselves from the important work.
Wow. We invent urgency to distract ourselves. That hits incredibly close to home.
It is a defense mechanism. If I am putting out fires, I don't have to face the scary prospect of writing a sales pitch that might get rejected. So I invent fires. The Essential 3 protocol takes away the matches. You aren't allowed to light fires. You have to build.
Let's talk about the turnaround timeline again. Within a week.
Yeah.
That speed suggests that the blockage was entirely mental.
It was entirely mental. The capability was always there. The client didn't need to learn a new skill. She didn't need a new software suite. She just needed to get out of her own way.
Remove the barrier.
Once you remove the mental barrier of, I'm failing because I can't do 12 things, she realized, I'm winning because I can do 3.
This shift from chaos to focus. Chaos really is a choice, isn't it?
Chaos is often just a lack of boundaries. When you set a boundary like, I will only do these 3 things, order naturally emerges. You create a container for your energy.
And guilt to progress. I think guilt is the silent killer of dreams.
Guilt creates drag. It is like driving with the parking brake on. You are pressing the gas with your ambition, but the brake of guilt is on because you feel bad about all the things you aren't doing.
And when you release the brake,
by accepting that 3 tasks are enough, the car surges forward without you even pressing the gas any harder.
that connects right back to our consultant analysis. You cannot grow a business from a place of guilt.
Think about the energy you bring to your work when you feel guilty. It's heavy, it's frantic, it's apologetic. Now think about the energy when you feel capable. It's confident, it's creative, it's bold. Which energy attracts customers?
The confident energy, 100%.
Exactly. So your internal scheduling strategy directly impacts your external marketing performance. If you fix the schedule, you fix the vibe. If you fix the vibe, you sell more.
It is all connected. The daily directive in Section 5 puts the power back in the listener's hands. Give yourself the chance to win today.
Most people wake up and set themselves up to lose. They stack the deck against themselves with an impossible list. We are saying, stack the deck in your favor. Rig the game so you can actually win.
Let them be enough. That phrase is so healing.
It's permission. We are giving you permission to be human. You are not a machine. You are a founder. And founders need to think, not just process tasks all day. By limiting the volume, you create space for high-level thinking.
The conclusion on structure reminds us, if the business feels stuck, the list is too long.
Use that as a daily diagnostic tool. Anytime you feel resistance, look at the list, cut it in half, then cut it again until you feel the lightness return.
The lightness is the signal.
The lightness is the signal that you have finally found traction.
I want to revisit the ThriveTime concept for a second. We briefly touched on it, but it's really about trusting your time choices.
Trusting your choices means owning your no. When you choose 3 things, you are implicitly saying no to 100 other things. You have to trust that your no is just as important as your yes.
That is incredibly hard for people pleasers.
It is. But you aren't building a business to please people. You are building it to serve a market and create freedom. You can't do that if you are a slave to everyone else's agenda.
Our analysis shows that for many aspiring entrepreneurs, the problem is not a lack of ambition. It is a lack of focus.
We need to validate the listeners here. If you are struggling, it is not because you are lazy. It's not because you aren't smart enough. It's likely because you care too much. You are trying to do everything because you want it to work so bad.
It's misdirected passion.
Correct. We just need to channel that passion through a narrower pipe that increases the pressure, the velocity, and the ultimate impact.
Like a pressure washer. Water coming out of a garden hose is a gentle sprinkle. Put that same water through a tiny nozzle and it can cut through concrete.
That is the perfect analogy for the essential 3. We are narrowing the nozzle. Same amount of water, same effort, but infinitely more power.
And that burns through the obstacles.
That is exactly how you break through the revenue plateaus.
I want to talk about the consistency aspect mentioned in the conclusion. The goal is a consistent business-building routine, not sporadic bursts of fractured energy.
We've all seen the hero entrepreneur who stays up for 48 hours to launch a site, then disappears for 2 weeks because they got sick. That is not a business. That is a manic episode.
Right. A business is showing up every day, doing the work, and clocking out.
Boring is good. Boring is profitable. Predictable is profitable. The essential 3 makes your growth predictable.
Let's look at the math on that. If you do 3 things a day, 5 days a week, that's 15 major tasks a week. That's 60 a month. That is 720 a year.
Imagine where your business would be if you completed 720 significant business-building tasks in the next year. You would be unrecognizable.
Versus planning 3,000 tasks and doing none of them well.
Exactly. The math always favors the focused.
Let's cycle back to the feeling of overwhelmed versus capable. The data shows the client experienced this shift within a week. How can our listeners replicate that speed?
They can replicate it starting tomorrow or even today. Take a piece of paper, write down everything you think you need to do. Get it all out of your head. That's the brain dump.
Okay, so you have a list of 20 things on the page.
Now look at that list. Pick the top 3. The ones that, if you only did them, would make you feel proud of the day. Circle them.
And the rest?
Cross them out for today. Literally draw a line through them. Move them to a later list if you must, but remove them from your visual field for the next 24 hours.
That physical act of crossing them out is powerful.
It is a contract with yourself. You are declaring them irrelevant for today. Now, do the 3 circled things. When you finish, stop.
And just sit with that feeling of being done.
Absorb it. Let your brain bathe in the dopamine of completion. That reinforces the habit. You will want that feeling again tomorrow.
That's how you build the addiction to progress rather than the addiction to busyness.
Precisely. We want to be addicted to results.
I think we've covered the mechanics, the psychology, and the application beautifully. Is there anything else about the fractured energy concept we missed?
I think it's worth noting that fractured energy is highly contagious. If you are a leader or if you have a team, even a small one, maybe just a VA, if your energy is fractured, theirs will be too.
You'll pass it down the chain.
You will give them unclear instructions. You will change your mind constantly. You will drive them crazy.
So simplicity isn't just for you. It is for the health of your entire operational ecosystem.
Leadership starts with self-management. If you can't manage your own schedule, you definitely can't manage a team. The Essential 3 is fundamentally a leadership training tool.
That is a very powerful perspective. It's training for the future CEO version of yourself.
You are practicing the discipline of prioritization. That is the CEO's main job. Allocating resources to the highest yield activities. You start practicing that with your own time right now.
So to recap the journey we've been on in this session, we identified the diagnosis, which is fractured energy. The symptom is working all the time with zero progress.
We looked at the metric, the broken expectation of 12 tasks versus 2, the heavy feeling that creates.
We analyzed the mechanics of overwhelm, specifically for the 9-to-5 side hustler. The enemy is overwhelm, and the error is the unlimited hours fallacy.
We introduced the protocol, the Essential 3, 3 priorities. Finish them. Let everything else wait. Trusting your time choices.
We saw the turnaround, from chaos to focus, from guilt to progress, the irrefutable logic that clarity creates momentum.
And we gave the strategic application. Win today, choose 3, do 3, stop, let it be enough.
It is a complete system shift from a volume operating system to a clarity operating system.
And that is the exact upgrade every founder needs to make if they want to scale.
It really is about being kind to yourself, isn't it?
It is. But it's a rigorous kindness. It's not letting yourself off the hook to be lazy. It's setting yourself up to succeed. It's the kindness of a good coach who puts you in a position to actually score the goal.
Rigorous kindness. I like that. It's not soft. It's highly strategic.
It's the most strategic thing you can possibly do for your business.
Before we close, let's touch on one final trap. The what if I finish early trap. Say I pick my 3 tasks and I am fully done by 2 in the afternoon. What then?
That is the danger zone.
Yeah.
The immediate temptation is to pull in 5 more tasks from the backlog.
Right. You think, I'm on a roll, let's keep going.
If you do that, you violate the contract. You tell your brain that done isn't actually done. You move the goalpost on yourself.
So what should you do instead?
You can do deep study. You can rest. You can exercise. You can do something that recharges your cognitive battery. But do not add more to-do items. Let the win stand.
Let the win stand. That protects the enough psychology we talked about.
Exactly. If you always add more, you never get to feel finished. You remain on the treadmill. You have to learn how to get off the treadmill.
That is profound. The ability to stop is just as important as the ability to start. And really, your business is shaped by the fires you let burn just as much as by the fires you put out.
It is the ultimate form of control. It's the difference between being busy and being in business.
If you're ready to stop the overwhelm and start building real business momentum, visit 365 Freedom online to join the community. This has been a 365 Freedom Strategy session.